Everybody knows.
Okay, beautiful. Then I'll knock
Go with
here.
a much smaller
Okay.
screen.
All right. I'm going to call to order. Actually, we're going to reconvene our regular business meeting of Community High School District 99 on Monday, January 28th. We are reconvening because we've already been in closed session since 6:30, and a roll call was taken there, and we do have a quorum. So we're going to move on to the third item, which is the Pledge of Allegiance, and we'll stand and recite that.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. Item 4 is approval of meeting minutes of December 17th, 2012 business meeting, December 17th, 2012 closed meeting, January 14th, 2013 special workshop meeting, and January 14th, 2013 closed meeting. Does anybody have any changes, corrections, or clarifications at this time?
No.
Okay. Hearing none, then do I hear a motion to approve the minutes as presented?
So moved.
Second.
Okay. We'll call the vote then, please.
Terry Pavasich.
Aye.
Mike Davenport.
Aye.
Keith Mattoon.
Aye.
Julie Beckman.
Aye.
Deb Boyle.
Aye. Thank you. The approval of the minutes has been done. Okay. Reception of visitors. This is the first reception of visitors. This is, you can come up to the board on any agenda item on which the board will vote this evening. Do we have any takers? Going once, going twice? Okay. All right, then we're going to move right on to item 6, which is recommendations and reports of the superintendent. So I'll turn this over to you, Dr. McDonald.
Thank you, Mrs. Boyle. We have several reports for the board this evening. The first is a quarterly financial report we make 4 times a year. And Mr. Stalen, the controller, is going to make this report.
Okay, and you can see we popped up on that screen. I don't have the narrative for you there. It's in your packet, and it's also hopefully on your screens now. But starting with the fund balances, and just for the benefit of the members of the audience who might not have seen this 1,000 times like you have, this is the fund balance recap. We do this on a quarterly basis, but we don't do it after the first quarter. We only start with the December quarter and then go forward. In March and then in June. The top section is the current fiscal year and where our fund balances are. You can see on the far right-hand column ending balances in total $37,627,000. We'll talk about that number in a minute. Just some people would be surprised it's such a large number, but typically, oh, all right. Get really high tech here with a laser pointer. And here we go, if you can see it. $37,627,000. And compare that to the prior year of $39,615,000, and net reduction of almost $2 million. However, the biggest part of that, if you look on that bottom line of difference, if you can see it, for members of the audience, there's 1.4 million of that is due to transfers, and we have pushed harder on our transfers out of our operating funds to go towards our capital projects fund. In fact, the largest single item would have been the North High School plumbing repairs that we decided to add to the budget last year, kind of late in the year, just as a precaution to get it done sooner rather than later. So that's a big part of that. So it's really debt service and capital projects that we've transferred out of our operating funds that's causing that. If you look at the expenditures and revenues, there's about a $400,000 differential there this year, 1.1 million on the bottom there versus 1.7 million for the expenditures paid. But some of that's just timing. And in fact, the largest item on the expenditure side that makes a difference is about $400,000 of insurance reimbursable expenditures that we've made, still finishing off some of the projects from when the tornado, microburst, whatever you want to call it, hit our South Campus and North Campus, and it just did some damage where we couldn't get it all done in one summer. We got some of it done in this fiscal year. And so there'll be about 400,000 of that expenditure that is going to be claimed and is eligible for insurance. We're virtually certain we'll get that. So when you get a reimbursement for an expenditure in the same fiscal year, the State Board of Education asks you to actually directly offset that expenditure. And that's good, because we don't have a budget for that. And you'll see in the expenditure side, it's going to show up there as an apparent over budget at this point in time. I'm told just, which button do I pull to move it for? Are you going to do that? Okay. I have my techie in the back there. Yes, please, revenues. Let's go to revenues. Oh, I see.
Let's go to the logo.
That's why I didn't do it. All right. Yeah, let's focus on the top, really, because we're just going to keep this at a pretty high level. Property tax is 100% collected. If you look at the total for the top section, which is the, again, this is all operating funds combined, and then on an individual fund basis, the details there. But the total, column 80 million in budget, 91% collected at the end of this quarter, 91% last year. In total, it looks the same. There are some variations, not dramatic ones, but property taxes, 100% collected compared to 99%. For some reason, the county actually sent us typically a January payment right at the end of December, so we picked it up. So we're right on the button with taxes. We probably still will get a few dribbles of taxes by the end of the year for that particular levy, but we're just about at 100% already. Replacement taxes appears to be higher collected as a percentage, but really the dollar amount's about the same. We just over budgeted last year. There was a reduction that the state made kind of late in the game and reduced 13% of the property replace tax adjustments, or notified us that there'd be a 13% reduction, actually. The budget was already set. And so our budget was too high last year. We discovered it at this point last year. And when we prepared our budget this year, we lowered the budget. So it's really about the same. Interest income, just steaming away there at $73,000. Historically, we would make between $3 and $4 million on the budgets, on the balances that we have in our investments. But it's just the interest rates of the time. We did invest in tax anticipation warrants again, but that was just closed. The deal was just closed at the end of December. We haven't seen any of that, and it's really not going to change our balances that much. But instead of earning 0.07%, we're even 0.7% on our investments. So we're really doing a little, it's terrible. But we are going to be able to do a little bit better on a portion of our investments. Really key things here where there's nothing else on the revenue side that I think I would want to point out as being really significant. State aid is virtually the same as last year in terms of the amount that they owe us, about $1.8 million that they're in arrears right now. That I won't call it a typical year, but in better years for the state where they would have another $1.8 million in payments to us. And we'll maybe flip to the expenditures. Thanks, Greg. This is good right there. For the expenditures paid, salaries and benefits, right in line with expectation. There were 27 pay dates last year. There's only 26 this year, which is more normal. We're halfway through our year. We should be in good shape with our salaries and benefits. They're running right in line with expectation. And you notice 83% overall for capital outlay compared to 73%. The biggest thing sticking out is really in the building fund, where we're $400,000 overspent in terms of that line item. Actually, that particular line is coming out of purchased services, but it was for capital outlay. So I need to modify what I just said. The purchased services is a line item where that is going to stick out. That number is going to drop down by $400,000 when we get our insurance reimbursement, and we've applied for that. The capital outlay is higher, but we have done more of our projects at this point in time. And what we do with each of these line items, we take a look at what we have left at the midpoint here and start to pay attention to whether or not we think we're going to have a problem at the end. And particularly to capital outlay, we don't think we'll have any problems. We just did a few more projects during the course of the year, during the summer. and we anticipate having adequate budget there for the remaining projects. And everything else really is kind of falling into place. We have a little bit more on the tuition side in terms of 64% compared to 62%, but we feel it's under control. And so at this point, there's no really big red flags for us to worry about. Any questions?
Open up to discussions? Nothing?
Every year I ask this just for people's information. Can you explain replacement taxes so that people understand?
Sure. I always have to try and remember because they are so complex. You're right.
Thank you. You're
corporate
a comfort
corporate personal property replacement taxes. I think it went back in the early 90s or maybe late 80s, where it was determined that for a corporation to have to pay to the state taxes on its personal property was unconstitutional because they're already paying taxes on their income, and so it looked like a double taxation. And so the state at that time took a look at how much of that income, personal property tax, was coming into their coffers and how much was going out to schools, and locked in that percentage. And so we get that particular percentage of a state pool of corporate personal property replacement taxes. They just call it another tax instead of personal property taxes. And so they still tax corporations for it, they just do it in a different way. And we get a percentage each year of that pot. And it's a, we never really know. Actually, there's sometimes, for instance, last year I mentioned there was a 13% reduction. It really was not so much a reduction as it was that the prior year the state had decided to do a plan where they would allow people to pay late taxes without penalty, and so they collected more in the year than they normally would, and really when they set out their budgets, they didn't make that adjustment for us for the next year until it was too late for us to have it already passed. But so there's ebbs and flows to that corporate personal property replacement tax that don't always follow what the economy is doing.
It's good to know that it's there, at least. Thank you.
Yeah, and it's relatively low compared to what we would normally expect to get as well. We would normally expect to get in excess of $1 million, maybe $1.2 million in replacement taxes, and I do attribute that to the economy.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Stalin. We'll move on to item 6B, which is the annual energy conservation report.
Thank you, Mrs. Boyle. And just as a precursor to this report, the district has been working on ways to avoid energy costs formally since 2002. And over that period of time, frankly, we've avoided millions in costs. That's great. And in the past, we've made reports to the board about our progress. I don't think we've done that in a while, and we wanted to do that at least one more time before Mr. Schock retires, since he's played a pivotal role in this. So the report tonight is Ms. McCartney, Mr. Schock, and Mr. Collegier. So, Lisa, you're on.
Let me start
Okay.
just real quick. Lisa McCartney is a biology teacher at South High School, and has been our liaison with Energy Educators, Inc., EEI, since 2002. And at that time, we partnered with EEI in an attempt to save energy through behavioral changes in the occupants of the buildings. Prior years to that, we had been implementing energy conservation improvements, facility improvements, more insulation, things like that. But we realized that a lot of energy savings could be made with behavioral changes. So Lisa's going to talk about that. And Jim Collegier, our Buildings and Grounds Supervisor from North High School, will follow up with a perspective from the school and a little bit of future planning that's coming up.
Thank you.
Good?
Yep.
All righty.
You're on.
Our grand total for the life of the program, and again, we're in our 11th year right now. We've got something to celebrate tonight because we're about to hit $4.5 million over the life of the program of costs that we've, expenditures that we've avoided having to pay. So we call it cost avoidance. And that's, we're using 23% less energy than we were when we began the program. So that's a lot to celebrate. That's big stuff. That's a big number. To put it into perspective, if you look at that pie chart, you can see what we expected to pay. and what we've actually paid as a result of implementing behavioral changes and mechanical changes combined. And it's a big chunk of the pie, so it kind of feels good. When I say cost avoidance, you can see it's the amount we would have spent. Like we had a base year, 2001 to 2002, where we tracked our utility expenditures and considered that our base year, and everything we've done since then is in relationship to that base year. So we have to make adjustments every now and then for load creep from extra computers being added and big ticket items like that. So it accounts for that. The database that we use accounts for changes in weather, rate changes, all kinds of things. So when you see that number, it's a real number considering all those things. Let's just skip past that so you can just see what it's attributed to. Whoa, that was a good slide, don't miss it. This is a biggie. This is a trend in our use of just natural gas at South High, and I'm zeroing in on natural gas because it's winter right now, and that's what's powering our heating costs. So if you look at the blue line on the top in 2009, that's what we used to be spending. Then Dr. McDonald decided that we could save a teacher or two by dropping a degree from the normal set points that we had established.
We got in trouble for that.
Of course, they froze to
I'm
death.
telling you,
Yeah.
look at the difference it made. The
Wildly
next two
popular.
lines are the difference that made. So it really did reduce our use pretty substantially. And then you see the bottom line, which is completely attributed to we've made very few behavioral changes during the HVAC renovation project at South High, so the rest of that change is completely attributable to those mechanical changes, and that's huge. Wow. We've pretty much reduced our consumption by half. So that's a ton. I think the equivalent when I look at the annual cost of paying for natural gas since 2009, we are spending about $110,000 a year less on natural gas at South than we were in 2009. That's a lot of money. So we attribute this to, Jim, you can chime in here too. Every member of District 99, including whoever reads the district homepage and sees our little energy conservation badge and looks at that and can go to GreenQuest and track their own energy expenditures. The entire District 99 community in and out of the buildings participates in creating this change. So it's kind of fun to see everybody working together. I track all the utility data with Energy Cap software, and 10 years worth of data now is kind of nice, and it's backed up by the fact that we use the same utility data to qualify for our Energy Star leadership. We're I think, as we requalify for that in March. We're partners with Energy Star, but I think we're about to reach a leadership status. There are different levels of achievement. So that's going to be, again, as a direct relationship of doing that HVAC renovation. It's been a big deal. And then again, we go through the buildings. You got a big audit coming up at North, right?
We have an audit coming up at North with White & Company, but I want to take a minute and just thank the district-wide staff, CMG certified support staff, coaches. I've been at North for 8 years, and just seeing the improvement. Staff leaving for the end of the day, turning lights off, coaches coming in on the weekend, having a practice, and we'll turn the lights on, shut them off. I have seen such improvements in my 8 years. I know it probably doesn't seem like a lot, but it really is. It's a team effort. Shutdowns for winter, spring, and summer. They're doing a phenomenal job. So I just want to, throw out a thank you. It's a team effort, and everyone's doing a great job.
Yeah, it's been outstanding, and it's really paying attention to the buildings not being used, listening at night to see what's running that shouldn't be, and during the day you use them the way they're supposed to be used. But it's paying attention after hours to making sure things get shut down properly. That's where all the savings comes from, or the bulk of it. Another fun thing here, you can see here that this program, in the first 4 years, most of the consulting firm was paid. That's the purple line there, what it costs to operate the program. And the blue line is the costs we've avoided. So this is way more than paying for itself. So it's been pretty nice. Again, I think we paid the consulting firm, I don't remember what the dollar amount was, but it was over the first 4 years of the program, correct?
Yeah, right.
Okay. And then, so that's fun to look at. This is the environmental impact. This is my favorite part right here. When you look at the fact that the amount we've saved has taken the equivalent of almost 20,000 cars off the road and reduced carbon emissions by that, it's huge. Or look at all the trees, the equivalent of the trees we've planted. The kids get a kick out of this data right here. They want to know what the heck difference are we making. Well, look at this. This really makes it stick out loud and clear. So that's a nice piece of slide to look at. As far as grants go, we chased down a grant a long time ago. I want to say in the first 5 years of the program, we got an $80,000 grant from the Illinois Clean Energy Foundation to retrofit the lighting in the buildings. So we went from those big T12 fluorescent bulbs down to the T8s. Spent all that and could have spent more, but we got the buildings done with that. The parking lot lighting that went to LEDs over this past summer, I think I'm not chasing down that grant. I think the contractor is as part of a performance contract.
Right.
But we do have an application through the Department of Commerce and Economic Opportunity that goes in by May 14th, so that all the gym lighting at both campuses can go to LED lighting. And that needs to be done badly, because that's pretty faded lighting.
Yeah.
So, and you know, I think there's wiring at South. There's a lot of rewiring that has to be done. It's still all cloth insulated wiring, so that's going to be updated. It's going to be outstanding. It'll be competition bright lighting in there. It's going to be wonderful. And then whatever else comes up that we can think about, just go after a grant for. Whatever comes up. EEI is really good. EEI just rebranded and they're calling themselves Synergistics now. They're doing a lot more than just K-12 schools. They've got 8 to 1,200 schools nationwide. They're including, that's not a boost for EEI, but they're doing hospitals now and universities and mega churches, and they're into everything. They're all kinds of big buildings now. And they've had a hugely successful company, and it keeps getting bigger and bigger. So it's been a treat to learn what they have to teach, I can tell you. What else can we share? Let's see here. What do we have coming up?
We've got our, what you just mentioned, Lisa, our
Parking lots.
Our LED lighting in our gymnasiums coming up this summer. We also have air handlers at North, 4 large air handlers that'll be more efficient and be BAS controlled. So those are 2 coming up this summer. The audit's going on right now with White & Company. One of the objectives is for them to seek out some energy conservation and see what they can come up with. So we'll see what they can get back to us with. And future projects. We also have small gyms, both North and South campuses, that have 1,000-watt bulbs that we're looking at doing possibly a year from now. So good things coming.
Yep. And exciting as the department chair for South is here, right? My boss. Love her to death. She's wonderful. But she's been really flexible in allowing us to get a little bit more creative in how we're thinking about including some of this stuff. And as the next generation science standards come up, a lot of the sustainable practice stuff is including in those standards. So we'll have some opportunities to include more of this in the classroom. So that's going to be a lot of fun. Getting the kids more involved, in addition to the Go Green Club and all those other little initiatives we have in the recycling going on, to get more things actually incorporated into the classroom is going to be nice, just to include more kids in all of this and spread the ethic even further. It's like an ethic. It's a belief system, and it's a community belief system that makes this stuff save money. So the more we get the kids involved, the longer this all lasts and the more successful we get at it. But again, we save more and more and more all the time. It just keeps snowballing. So it's good stuff.
Very good.
That's about it. Good news to share tonight.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
All set?
Very good.
Yeah, good. Who am I passing?
Discussion?
Any questions?
Any questions, discussions?
No questions? Going once?
We're on 6C.
Excuse me?
6C is where we're going.
Yes. I figured that out. School day committee report.
Okay, Mr. White, the school day committee's been meeting since July, virtually weekly since July. Several of those persons are here with us tonight. According to the contract, because this group was established by contract, the board approved back in June, there were to be 2 reports to the board this year, one in November and one in January. This is the January report. We've spent a lot of time on this issue and found it a lot more complex and interesting, let's say, than we anticipated initially. We have a request tonight that is not earth-shaking, but it is a request and a recommendation. And I'm going to let Dr. Smith and Ms. Eder, who have been part of this group, along with me and Lois and Brian in the audience, make their presentation.
All right, well,
Scott Kasich as well.
I thought we would just take a quick couple of minutes to just refresh your memory on what the purpose of the committee was, not to spend a lot of time. We took some time in November. But when we when we put the language in the contract, it was to commit to something that both parties felt was worth our time and commitment. So the idea of pulling this joint committee together was to consider looking at our day, our school day, our work day, the student day, and seeing if there was a more ideal school day, teacher day within our typical parameters that would allow us to look differently at the types of student supports and some teacher time that we feel is, there are some needs that we're not meeting. And I shared earlier, the committee is comprised of 14 members, 7 administrators, 7 teachers that were selected by the DGEA. And for the most part, this full committee continues to be in place. I realized these were going to come in one at a time here. I'm going to let these fly in, and I'm not going to read each one. But basically, number 1 and 2, just to reiterate, as we talked about the purpose of a teacher work day, a school day, our goal continues to be twofold. First, to create that block of time when students have access to their teachers. And secondly, to provide time opportunities for teachers to meet with their colleagues to address those teacher conversations and the teacher professional development opportunities that we certainly want to support. So those were, as we looked at different schedules and as we've had these ongoing conversations, our goals have been really twofold. So I'll pass it to Karen.
Yeah, if you guys remember when we did talk in November, we discussed what the committee found were some strengths and an idea of a student resource period, having a block of time somewhere in our school day that we could dedicate to providing teacher contact time with their specific students rather than some more general resources. As a committee, we found that the idea of a block schedule really provided a lot of opportunity for innovation and a really nice opportunity for a large block of time within every school day to provide a considerable amount of intervention for our students, and then also address that teacher piece to provide more collaboration so we could address some of the other concerns about what we saw were problems with teachers being removed from class for collaboration opportunities or special schedule days or things like that. So those things that were on that list that Dr. Smith just had up, we thought that the block schedule really provided opportunities to address that. One of the guiding principles of our committee was to make sure that we didn't diminish any of the programming that we currently offer for our students. And we found that with the block schedules we were investigating, we actually would have offered opportunities for students to take 8 classes as opposed to what they currently are able to take, which is 7. And so we spent a considerable amount of time doing some research on that, investigating the pros and cons, discussing with staff at both campuses what this would mean for our instruction. And when we started to investigate that idea of really providing opportunity for 8 classes for students, you guys can imagine that that would have a considerable effect on FTE and then our physical resources. So unfortunately, while we did see some possibility in that, it does not seem like that's a feasible option for District 99. So while we had spent all that time investigating that, really thinking that there were some possibilities there, we needed to shift gears as a committee. So still believing in the idea of the SRP and understanding now that the block schedule was not an option, we decided to remain committed to this idea of this block of time for student resources and tried to figure out how we could fit a student resource period into what's more like our current 8-period bell schedule. And while that's a considerably less radical idea than converting our district to a block model, it still presents some challenges in planning. So currently, we're investigating quite a bit about how the SRP squeezed into our 8-period school day would affect the length of our current classes and the length of our programming as it stands. How we could adjust the SRP within the school day to make sure that we're providing enough time to assist students with appropriate interventions. What that might mean to the bells at the beginning and the end of the day, and if it might adjust or change the length of the entire school day, and then what kind of implications that might have on teacher schedules, FTE, or financial implications. And those all became great challenges for this committee to address in kind of what was now a more condensed time because we were so focused on the block option. Just to show you guys an idea of what that would look like, you know, this is just a very simple model, no time frames or anything else like that. And so this simple idea of putting SRP in really created some greater challenges for our committee to investigate. But our committee is still dedicated to the charge and hopeful that we can come up with a solution that will still provide those kinds of opportunities for our students and then address the needs of the staff as outlined in the contract language. So that brings us to the recommendation.
So if, you know, just conceptually, when you look at the model, if you, again, you consider our day, and if you take so many minutes and dedicate them to an SRP, something has to give within the model. So whether it's, you know, classes go from 50 minutes to this many minutes, and how long is the SRP, and how long is it okay to have the student day, how long, you know, where do we put it, what happens to before and after early bird classes, what happens to activities at the end of the day. So while it looks like a simple model to just run with, you know, there need to be additional conversations about how one piece impacts the other piece, and that's again where we find ourselves needing some additional time and discussions and trying to understand, making sure we understand the total fiscal and making some of the changes as well. So today, the recommendation that we bring is to leave the current 8-period schedule in place for next year. But what we would like to do is alter the function of the late start days. And currently, during the PLC days, most teachers are on 2 separate PLCs. There are times when one particular PLC will work for the entire period, but that time has been dedicated to PLC-only meetings. And after a lot of discussion about trying to provide some opportunities for teachers to have that professional time with one another, we have Common Core, and you heard the complexities of what was presented at the last board meeting. What we would like to recommend next year is that we have the opportunity to use that PLC time differently, not to eliminate PLCs, but to recognize that there may be groups for all or some of the PLC time that the time would be better served doing this. And that would all be decided within the building, within the departments, as far as what the best use of that time is. And then the committee would like to continue to meet and explore some of these additional options to expand the opportunities for both teachers and students. So that is the recommendation, and gathering feedback will continue to be a goal of the committee. There is an electronic suggestion box open to teachers. It's been open since the beginning. If we were to look at an SRP similar to something like the model that we showed you, we would want to get some feedback from the students to find out where they are, what their thinking would be about the SRP. And certainly the committee understands the need to get the community input once we, you know, if there is a model that's making any type of change in the length of the periods, length of the day, any impact on obviously students, that we certainly understand that there will be a time when we need to reach a little further outside of the scope of this committee at this point.
Can you articulate the recommendation rather succinctly?
Absolutely. Number one, to keep the current A-period schedule in place for 13-14. The second piece would be to use our PLC time a little differently moving forward. And then the third is to allow the committee to keep working and looking at the school day.
And the Education Association is in agreement with this recommendation?
It's a committee of 14. Everyone has an equal voice.
Other questions?
Just comment, it's, as much as you like to spend a lot of time on something and come out with fantastic ideas, it's equally important to figure out what doesn't work. And so I appreciate the hard work of the entire group thus far, and appreciate the work going forward. So thank you.
Okay.
A question regarding the PLCs, and let me step back a minute. This would all take place, whatever recommendations you're hoping to follow this fall, 2013?
For the PLC,
Right.
the changes with the PLC,
Right.
yes. Mhm.
And so I understood that most faculty are now members of 2 PLCs, or those who have elected to?
Majority, correct?
Right. So I know that's a huge challenge, because I'm sure all of that time has been taken up with PLC work, right, so far. But are you anticipating, or have you really had a chance to look at it closely, just telescoping the PLC work and making it more efficient, or do you have an idea of how that will work? Will there be PLC work done at every 2 weeks, or will it?
If I could answer, Julia, I think we have, we had a presentation last
Right.
week about the Common Core.
Right,
And
which is taking up,
it's taking up a lot of time
right,
for the teachers involved, but, for the math department, which has done tremendous work at both campuses, we probably have between 35 and 40 math teachers. Not all of those teachers are going to be involved in that work.
okay,
So that they would probably, a significant cadre of math teachers would be involved in that work as long as they needed to be, and then the rest of them would be involved in professional learning
Got it.
community as they always have.
right,
Similarly, we have a number of staff development initiatives, cooperative learning and assessment,
right.
and different
Project
types of
Chris.
instructional strategies and technology integration. And we've typically done that training, like today we had a session all day during the day, which means teachers have to get substitutes, or in the summer, or on outside the school day. And we believe we can use that same time to do that training. That will solve the issue of substitutes. A lot of that training then can occur at that point. We perhaps would not have to release as many people as trainers for that purpose. And yet again, we recognize not everyone would be involved in that. And so still, a significant number of people would still be involved in professional learning community.
Got it.
Okay? And
Yes.
so we're opening up the use of that time, but it's still got a very strong relationship to staff development.
And thank you, that clarifies it. I know it's a huge challenge for you.
Other questions? Okay, we'll move on to item 7, consent agenda. Is there a motion to approve or a motion regarding the consent agenda?
So moved.
Okay, Member Pevsis moves to approve the consent agenda.
Second, oh, sorry.
Member Davenport seconds. Call the vote, please.
I'm sorry, Mike?
It was Mike, yes. I tried to drown him out, but it didn't work.
Terry Kavasich?
Aye.
Mike Davenport?
Aye.
Keith Mattoon?
Hi.
Julie Beckman?
Aye.
Deb Boyle?
Aye.
Bill White?
Aye, the consent agenda has been approved. Item 8A, approval of comprehensive annual financial report. Dr. McDonald?
This is, I'll defer to Mr. Stalen because he's involved with this report.
And actually, this is very, just briefly, I gave you hard copies because I know it's easier to flip through pages than it is to see this on a PDF. It's a pretty heavy document. The key thing that I'd like to, really 2 things. One is that you should have found with that report a separate letter of internal controls from Miller Cooper, the independent auditors. I'm pleased to indicate that it's an unqualified or clean opinion as to report for internal control, saying that there's no material weaknesses they found. We do have conversations with them in advance. We do take their advice when we are setting up any changes in controls, and so we work really hard so that we don't have internal control deficiencies, and so I'm pleased to say that we have none noted during the course of the audit. And really just, you know, the document is on our website. It has been on our website. We've submitted this in December to the ASBO International for Certificate of Excellence. The key thing there is not so much the, what some would say is an accolade. It's more to make sure that we are meeting the national standards in terms of reporting to the community about the finances of the district, that we're using the proper basis of accounting, and all the required documents and information is here. And I think really, other than there's what's referred to the management's discussion and analysis letter in the beginning, which I think provides some good information. The statistical section really is what I think is the most impressive or maybe informational part of this report, where you can see different trends in the district, and I think it's just useful. It's a useful document for us in the business office, maybe not so much for the rest of the world, but it's good reference points for us to go
Light
through.
reading.
Yeah, right. I know it's cheaper than what Salmon X is. That would be
Yeah.
joke. Yeah. So, anyways, we're very pleased, and it's not a legal requirement, but we generally like to have board formally approve the document.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, any questions for Mr. Stalen regarding this document?
Just one. If I'm not mistaken, I think we've had this firm for a couple of years now, right? And
We
I
have.
guess my question is it important to change firms every now and again?
It is a good practice to do now and then. I mean, there are learning curves for auditors when they come in. As being a former auditor, I know that, of course, as being a former auditor, I would never want to change. But I do think it's good to make sure you have a rotation. That typical is 5 to 7 years rotation. This firm actually came in the middle of a contract we had with another firm and took that over. And I think we are in the 5th or 6th year of that engagement, so we do expect to go out next year. And it's time. There's, again, a learning curve when the auditors come in. Even though many schools are very similar, the systems are different. There's a pretty expensive study, and if you have a history of changing every couple years, you'll pay a lot more for your audit because there's some upfront costs. So they need at least a 5 to 6, maybe 7-year window to keep your costs in line. And I think because of peer review, independent audit firms do have peer review, and all of their working papers are reviewed. So we would only use a firm that adheres to peer review and that is making sure that their auditing practices are in line with the profession, so you don't get a substandard audit. And it still can happen, particularly in the area of school finance, because there's not many firms, there's only a handful that really have expertise in school finance, and it's a complicated little area. So I'm glad you noted that, and that is something it's on our docket for next year. We would have something in the spring where we would have different auditors in and have a selection process for them.
Thank you.
Other questions?
I just had a comment that I think the report, well, I haven't read it page to page, I will have to say, but have reviewed it, and every year it gives us really comprehensive information, not only about us, but about our community. And I would recommend it to anybody. I know we make light of it when we're here, but it's a very important document, and I think people in the community would get a lot of good out of it if they just go to the website and even read just the background information. So we appreciate the work that's done on it.
Yeah, there's particularly major taxpayers and things like that. There has been a slight shift. And there's documents like that, the largest taxpayers in the district, and part of that's to gauge the stability of the district.
Right.
Some communities have 1 or 2 really significant taxpayers. We're lucky enough to have a pretty broad spectrum and a lot. So there's no one domineering taxpayer. Reed Custer was an old audit client of mine there in the shadow of Braidwood. The nuclear plant in ComEd was 90% of their tax base. And when they won all of their litigations to appeal and reduce taxes, it was pretty tough for the district. So we don't have that situation, but that's the type of thing that I think you would
depend
say
on
you would look
one.
at. You
Right.
can see the stability of our school district compared to many others.
Thank you.
Any other questions? So, and if there are none, the chair will invite a motion to accept or approve the comprehensive annual financial report.
So moved.
Member Beckman moves.
Second.
Member Pavich seconds. Call the vote.
Julie Beckman,
Aye.
Terry Kavasich,
Aye.
Deb Boyle.
Aye.
Mike Davenport.
Aye.
Keith Mattoon.
Aye.
Bill White.
Aye, the CAFR has been approved. Item 8B, abatement resolution. I think Dr. McDonald, I'll pass it to you, and you pass it back to Mr. Stalin.
I will.
It's the Mark Stalen show.
Wait, and I'm sorry, I'm not following the agenda. I have a screen up here, so what was the topic?
Abatement resolution.
Abatement resolution, okay. This is what we love to do. We should spend 15 minutes on this. We issued alternate revenue bonds in 2011, and the agreement and the understanding was that with alternate revenue bonds, if the alternate revenue in this case is general state aid and those corporate personal property replacement taxes. And we were able to use bonds to fund that project, which was very important, and because we even saw a little example of the energy savings that we got from that, but there were some operational issues also solved by that project. And anyways, our agreement is, and understanding is that we will abate those taxes every year and not levy those against our tax base or our taxpayers, as long as those revenue streams are intact, and we expect those to stay intact. So our expectation is to continue paying these out of operations. I'm very pleased that we can do it. Not many districts have the ability to do this out of operations, and I'm very, very pleased that we can. So it's kind of a vague resolution. If you look at it, there's no amounts put in. It's because loss and costs and some of the county factors are not in there. So the attorneys write it very broadly to say all taxes related to this issue will be abated. And so that way we know we're abating the entire issue.
One question that came to me right now, so don't feel you have to answer it right away, you get it from me. How much money did the district save in interest or fees as opposed to going to bonding?
Well, we did go to bonding, but instead of the typical route, the debt service extension base, it was in the over $10 million that we saved by using this shortened method rather than going out on the long-term debt service extension base bonds. Because if you recall, the debt service extension base is a ribbon of debt service that we already have in place. And for us to use that without using alternate revenue bonds, just laying out regular bonds that would go against our taxpayers, it would have to be put at the end of that stream of debt service already on the books, which makes it longer term, and the interest rates would have been much higher. Instead, we were able to just go to a couple local banks and negotiate this directly, and had them kind of bid against each other, and we had a wonderful bid from MB Bank, and so we were able to keep it very short. And it was next. I think I'm going to throw a number of. I think it was $12 million, but I'm not positive. Over the life of this issue, it was incredible.
Was the present value down to a much smaller number?
Yes,
but
in terms of
still
actual tax
significant.
hitting our. Yeah, right. Exactly right. Because it wouldn't have started until 2017.
It's just that's the type of thing I think that we need to do a better job of explaining to the community, that we're giving money to teachers and facilities rather than investment bankers and bond counsel.
Right, and it's good. It really is a good thing that we've kind of keyed a certain amount of money out of our operations for capital outlay and for maintenance, because as these bonds eventually mature and go off the books, we will have that revenue stream or that resource stream to keep putting into our facilities, and we need to do that. We need to keep strong.
Well, you did have an answer. Thank you.
Okay. Nice answer, too.
Any other questions before I invite a motion to abate taxes? Any questions? Chair invites a motion.
So moved.
Member Pavich moves.
Second.
Member Beckman seconds. Call the vote.
Terry Kavasich,
Aye.
Julie Beckman,
Aye.
Deb Boyle.
Aye.
Mike Davenport.
Aye.
Keith Mattoon.
Aye.
Bill White.
Aye. The motion passes. The abatement's been approved. Item 8C, approval of school day committee recommendation. I believe we've heard the recommendation. I'll go ahead and ask for a motion, then we'll see if there's any discussion. I ask for a motion to approve the school day committee recommendation as we heard previously this evening.
So moved.
Member Davenport moves.
I'll second.
Vice President Boyle seconds. Does anybody have any questions or discussion before I call the vote? Going once? Going
Great
twice?
job.
Okay, call the vote, please.
Mike Davenport.
Aye.
Deb Boyle.
Aye.
Keith Mattoon.
Aye.
Terry Kavasich.
Aye.
Julia Beckman.
Aye.
Bill White.
Aye. The motion carries. The school day committee recommendation has been approved. Item 8D, action on the personnel matter that was discussed in closed session. The chair invites a motion without discussion.
So moved.
It was Keith.
Member Mattoon moves.
Second.
Member Davenport seconds. Call the vote, please.
Keith Mattoon.
Aye.
Mike Davenport.
Aye.
Terry Kavasich.
Aye.
Julia Beckman.
Aye.
Deb Boyle.
Aye.
Bill White.
Aye. The motion carries. The recommended action has been approved. Item 9A, old business, second reading on policy committee report, as we've been doing. Ms. Kupka and I have been reviewing these. Does anybody have any questions or concerns about, actually, I'll move first. I will move that we adopt the policies provided in 9A, 415, 445, 6195, 7325, 7300, and 7330. Do I have a second? Ms. Kupka's not here.
I'll second.
Okay, Vice President Boyle seconds. Is there any discussion, questions, concerns about these policies?
Pretty straightforward.
I'm hearing
Routine.
none.
Once again, these are IASB recommended, et cetera.
And
Right, and that policy 4.45 is going to go along with that item
The
that
next
we're
one.
going to
Right.
be approving next.
Right,
Right.
And Dr. Smith, Dr. McDonald, myself, and Dr. Kupka work on these, and then we know how to for. So with that, I call the vote.
Bill White.
Aye.
Deb Boyle.
Aye.
Mike Davenport.
Aye.
Keith Mattoon.
Aye.
Terry Kavasich.
Aye.
Julia Beckman.
Aye.
Okay, now we move to 9B, approval of the intergovernmental agreement. Again, all this material is on there. We probably won't have many actions to take under this, but it's a safeguard that's set up behind. So with that, I will move that the intergovernmental agreement described in agenda item 9B be approved. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Member Davenport seconds. Any comments, questions, discussion before I call the vote? Hearing none, call the vote.
Bill White.
Aye.
Mike Davenport.
Aye.
Keith Mattoon.
Aye.
Terry Kavasich.
Aye.
Julia Beckman.
Aye.
Deb Boyle.
Aye.
Okay, that motion carries. That intergovernmental agreement's been approved. Item 10, we have 6 new policies. As always, Dr. Kupka and I, along with Dr. McDonald and Dr. Smith, prepare these by comparing IASB recommended policies. In this case, there are no corresponding district policies. If any board member has questions or concerns, they can contact any of the 4 of us prior to our next meeting. And if anybody has any questions right now, we'll do what we can.
I think so.
And if there's no questions right now, we can move on from new business to the second reception of visitors. Is there anybody out there who wants to talk to us about anything related to District 99? Come to the microphone, state your name and address, or just your name is fine.
Is it on? I'm Lois Graham, Downers Grove Education Association President. I just want to make a point of clarification regarding the school day committee. The question was asked whether the DGEA was an approval. Technically, according to the contract, they have to vote on the proposal just as you voted on the proposal.
Oh, okay.
So I just wanted to make sure that there was some clarification on
Okay.
that. So that was it.
Thank you.
All right, thank
Good
you.
to know.
Anybody
Thank you,
else?
Lois.
Anybody else out there want to talk to us? Okay, item 12, communications and announcements. Len report, 12A.
I will direct members to the superintendent's cover memo from last Friday with a very succinct briefing and update for the board.
Okay. 12B, SACID.
This, once again, SACID programs are moving along nicely. I will have to say that at the last minute, I had to miss the last meeting, but from all that I heard, we are within budget so far, which is good, and we are beginning to develop the budget, and we will be heading into contract negotiations in the next couple of months, which I will be reporting on.
Okay, and then we have foundation, 12C.
We as a foundation are going to be represented at the, I believe you call it the 8th grade open house, or the freshman
Freshman,
of
incoming freshman.
17, I believe it is,
Do not say
which is
that,
really
please.
frightening that it's that far out, but it is. We will be at those events in the end of this month and the beginning of next month. And I had reported last time that we were going to do the pizza wars, but we are not going to be able to do that because the participation wasn't quite where we thought it should be. So other than that, that's about it for right now.
Okay. Any other communications or announcements from any member of the board or staff? Our next meeting is a week from today. It'll be the orientation meeting for candidates for the April election. And then we have a regular business meeting, apparently 4 weeks, on February 25th. Is there anything else that needs to come before us before I invite a motion to adjourn?
I think so. It's a short meeting.
Okay, the chair invites a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Member Pavasich moves.
A second?
Vice President Boyle, seconds. Motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Meeting adjourned.